Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. My name is Roland Texan, and I'm with Game of Apps. And today we're going to have the very first of our series of live streams, just talking about coding in general. So if you're joining us on the live stream, welcome. If you're joining us afterwards and watching this after the live stream, welcome as well. So just quickly about myself, I'm a software developer. I've been working in the industry for almost 30 years now, so I've seen a lot of changes since when I first started till now. Just to kind of show you how old I am, when I first graduated from university, we did not have the internet. We did not have HTTP. We did not have Java. Those languages were not invented yet. So I've seen a lot of changes over my whole career. And so this live stream, we just hope to be able to kind of chat with you and just talk about different software development topics. So we want this to be driven a lot by what you want to get out of this. So today I have planned just a few things that I'm going to show you. But as we move forward with this live stream, we want this to be more catered towards what you're looking for. So just when we get started, just maybe if you're on the chat right now, or if you're joining us after the live stream, maybe post a comment to tell us who you are and what grade you're in, so we can get to know each other over the next few weeks. So just some logistics while you're doing that. This live stream will be on every other Monday. So today is Monday, November 22nd. Our next one will be 2 weeks from now at 4 p.m. Okay, so chat etiquette, both for the chat, the live stream chat, as well as the comments afterwards. Please be respectful. This is an online forum, so we want you to be polite and respectful to each other. All right, so again, if you're on the live stream, let us know what grade you're in and where you're from. So we'd love to hear from you. So while you're doing that, I'm going to change my screens and we're going to jump right into this. Another thing about logistics, we don't expect this live stream to be too long. So if you're joining us, we don't want to take too much of your time to join the live stream. So we're hoping to maybe go between 30 minutes to 45 minutes, around there, depending on what we're covering. All right. So without further ado, I guess let's get started. So I want to talk about today just comparing and contrasting the development environments for Android and iOS. Okay, so we just want to start off with a mobile app development. So on Android, the environment is primarily using Android Studio. So let me show you that. I'm just going to switch to that. All right, so you should be able to see my Android screen. Can you give me an indication in the chat to make sure that you're seeing this? You should be seeing the Android Studio screen with my face on the bottom right. So just let me know in the chat that you can see this and that you can hear me well, so I know we're set up. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Peter. Peter says, yep. I also want to show you this one thing. So when you type in comments, I have the ability to actually show it on the live stream. So I'm going to do that now. So Peter says, yep. So you can see Peter's comment there. So thank you, Peter, for confirming that. All right. So what we have here is the Android Studio. So Android Studio, it works on both Macs and Windows computers. You can actually also download Android Studio for Linux, although I don't know too many people who use that on Linux. So what I've done here is I've created a blank project. So I've started off Android Studio, I've created a blank project. And what Android Studio does when you start off with a blank project is it creates these two files, this main activity.java and this activity main.xml. So let me close this so we can see a little bit more. So this, what it is in Android, an activity basically corresponds to a screen. So every screen that you have in your Android app would be represented by an activity. So in a blank project, we have one screen, so one activity. And so this is what we have here. Main activity, this is activity main.xml. This is the display. So you can see here that there's a representation of my screen here. And there's a text that says hello world right there in the middle. So the XML would be the layout code. And then we have the Java code here, which is for the main activity. So with Android Studio, you have an option of either coding it in Java or Kotlin. Kotlin is a much newer programming language than Java. Java has been around for a long time, but Kotlin is a more modern language that incorporates a lot of the newer techniques that the computer scientists have evolved over time. So what I'm showing here is Java, but we can that could easily be Kotlin as well. So let's run this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this app. It's a blank app. It just has hello world in the middle. I'm going to run it using the debug button here. So it'll build this app and then it'll run it inside the emulator. So this here is the emulator. It comes with Android Studio. When you install Android Studio, it comes with it. And it basically emulates an Android device. So you can see here in the bottom, it's building it, Gradle build running. So it's building my blank app. And then once it's finished building, it'll load it into the emulator and it'll run in the emulator. While it's running, I just wanted to say, if you have any questions while we're going through this, please post it on the chat if you're in the live stream. If you're joining us after the live stream, you can post it on the comments as well. And we can go back and if we see your comments, we can respond to it that way as well. All right, so here we go. So you see here that it's running now. It says Livestream Demo Android. That's the name of my app. And then right in the middle, we have Hello World there, which is basically what we have laid out here. Right. So if you'll see here in my layout file, I have a text view. And in the text view, the content is Hello World. Okay, so that's the Java app there, the Android app. Okay, so we'll come back to this. Now I'm going to switch over and I'll show you Xcode. This is for building iOS apps. So Xcode is the IDE or the integrated development environment for building iOS and actually also Mac, iOS, Mac, any Apple device. If you want to write an app for any Apple device, you would use Xcode. So similarly to what we saw in Android, when we create a blank project, Xcode creates some initial files for you. So we have main.storyboard. So main.storyboard is similar to what you saw, the activity main.xml in Android Studio, except here it's more of a storyboard. So it's closer to, you can actually have multiple screens displayed in one storyboard. In Android Studio, you're only showing one screen at a time. With the Xcode storyboard, you could actually have multiple screens here. Here, I just have one screen. Behind the scenes, the storyboard is also an XML file. But in developing iOS apps, we don't normally modify the XML files directly. This interface is rich enough that we could do everything in the storyboard graphically. And then we also have, corresponding to that storyboard, we have a view controller. And the view controller, this is Swift code here. So we have a view controller called view controller. And that corresponds to my storyboard here. If you look at this view controller, that's basically what corresponds to it. And there's nothing in here right now. So if we want to have it look similar to our Android app, let me add a label. So I'm going to add a label here, and in this label, let's say hello world. So it'll look like our Android app. Okay, and I'm just going to position it well so that it'll run. Okay, and then we can run this. And Xcode also has a simulator similar to Android Studio's emulator. So You can simulate a whole bunch of things. So right now, by default, it's an iPod Touch 7th generation. So that's what it's building for. You can see it's launching now, it's attaching, and here we are. And it says hello world right there. Okay, awesome, great. Okay, so that's a quick demo of how Android Studio and Xcode, the blank projects. So let me ask you a question. You see here this hello world on my screen here. It shows hello world kind of close to the center, but in my simulator, it's kind of off to the bottom right a little bit. What do you think is happening here? So please feel free to type in the chat. What do you think is happening here? How come it looks this way? In my Xcode here, it looks like that, but here it looks closer to the bottom and to the right, where here it's closer to the center. If you have any thoughts, please post it in the comments or in the chat. Yeah, Peter says different fonts. That's right. That's absolutely right. So you see here in my Xcode, it says iPhone 11, right? So this is being displayed as an iPhone 11. While my simulator, it's running as an iPod Touch, which is a smaller. Oh, actually, Peter, I should put your comment up since you said different phones. So that's what Peter said. And I said, yeah, that's absolutely right. So let's confirm that. See, I can change here. This is being rendered as an iPhone 11. And let me render it as an iPod Touch. I guess maybe the closest thing here that we can find may be an iPhone SE. So if I rendered this as an iPhone SE, then you'll see here that it's closer to the bottom right as well. So good job, Peter. Okay. So now when we're laying out our design, it's good practice that you don't want to have a design that's specific to a certain size of phone, and then it'll look different on different phones. You want it to be kind of universal, right? So what we can do instead here is that I want Hello World to be centered vertically and centered horizontally. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to add some constraints. Okay, so I'm going to say horizontally in container and vertically in container to this label. All right, so now it's automatically moved to the centered vertically and horizontally, because I added those two constraints. So now let's say I want to render it as a different size phone. There's an iPhone 8 Plus. You'll see that it's still centered. If I go back to the iPhone 11, which was the original device that it was rendering for, it should be centered as well. Okay, just waiting for it slow. Okay, there we go. Then if I stop the simulator and I run it again, and it should load it up on the simulator, it should be centered. Okay, it's loading up on the simulator, and there it is. It's centered. So good job. All right, awesome. Now let's take a look at the Android text here. You can see here that similar to the constraints that I added, by default, the blank project in Android Studio, it has these constraints already. So these lines are showing that it's going to be centered. And if we switch here to the design view, you can see that these constraints, all four constraints, top, left, right, and bottom, are applied. And if we go here to the XML, you'll see here that there are actually four constraints here, from bottom of the text view to the bottom of the parent, left to the left of the parent, right to the right of the parent, and top to the top of the parent. So those constraints were added. Okay, awesome. All right, so like I said, I want this to be interactive. We've got some time still. Tell me what you want to add onto these screens. So on the chat, type in what you want me to add. We can add some additional text, or we can add an image, for example. Yeah, so tell me what you want, and then we'll do that. Okay, so go ahead and type in the chat. Or we can add buttons too. Actually, we can do that. We can add a button, and then we can interact with the button, and then maybe the button will do something and change the text. How's that? Okay, Peter says add an image. Okay, so we will do that. We will do that, Peter. But before we do that, let's add something simpler first, a button, and then we can interact with the button, and then we'll add the image in a bit. Okay. So in Android Studio, let's do that. Let's add a button. So I'm going to grab this button here, and then I'm just going to add it here somewhere below the text. All right. So you can see I have a button here. So let me just arrange that. And let's run this right now. So I just want to show you. I'm going to run this button. Actually, no, there's no need. We already talked about the constraints, right? So I need to add some constraints for this button here. So what I'll do is I'll add a top constraint. So this says that this button is now 39 pixels away from that label. Okay. So if I want to change it, let's say to 60, I can just change it here. And then now this button is 60 pixels below this label. Let's give it a left and a right constraint as well. This is the current value. It's currently 158 pixels to the left, from the left edge, and 159 pixels from the right edge. But if I want it to be perfectly centered, regardless of the device, I can just change this to 0. Okay. So if they're both 0, then it'll just be balanced and it'll be in the middle. If I kept it at 158 and 159, then this would be specific to this screen size. So if I ran it in a different screen size, then it won't look the same. Okay, there. So we have our button. Let's run this to make sure it works. Oops. This one here. So it's building. So what we want to do next, if this works well, is I want to be able to tap on the button. And then when I tap on the button, I want to change the text on the hello world. All right. So but before we do that, let's just make sure this works. So it's installing it onto the emulator. Okay, there we go. Right, so we've got the button. We can tap on the button, but nothing happens because it's not connected to anything yet. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to go in my code. And I'm going to type in create a variable for the button. So I'll call it my button. And then what I need to do is I need to connect this variable to my Android, my XML layout, right? So let's look at my XML layout here. I want to connect it to this button. Now this button has an ID called button. So that's how I'm going to connect that, right? Oh, before I go ahead, you see this button is red. That means that it doesn't know what it is. And it tells me that there's a library called Android widget button. Is that what I'm referring to? So I'm going to say, yes, that's what I'm referring to. So it's going to import. When I said yes, it actually added this line here. It imports the appropriate library. Okay, so find view by ID. And then I'm going to refer to my ID, the button. Okay, so that's this button, this ID here is how it knows that it refers to this button here because it matches the ID. All right, so let me just show you here what I'm going to do. My button dot set on click listener. So the set on click listener is a method that's called whenever this button is tapped. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to create an on click listener object here. And inside there, there's a method called on click. And this will be executed when the button is tapped. Okay, so here I want to change the text of my text view, right? So this is my text view here. So then I need to get a reference to this text view so I can change its text. So let me do that here. I go text view, my text view. And then you see again, it's underlined in red. So it says, are you referring to this library here, the Android widget.textView? I'll say yes. Let me bring that up again. And then it adds this line here to import that library. Let's find view by ID, r.id. And it can autocomplete here, text view, so that's that. And then I'm going to change its text, set text. And then let's change it to how are you? Okay, so if I did everything correctly, let me run this now. If I did everything correctly, then when I tap my button, it's going to change the text of this text view to how are you? Right, it's loading it into the emulator. Okay, it starts off with hello world, and then the button is there. So if I tap on the button, it changes the text to how are you? All right, so that just shows you very quickly how I can interact with my screen, how I can connect my Java code to my XML, and how I can respond to button taps and then change the values of my text view here. All right, let's do the same thing in Xcode. All right, so I have this label here. Let me add a button. So that's this one right here. So we'll add it below. So we have a button there. So again, let's set up the constraints. So I want to constrain it to my label. Label is hello world. And let's say we want it to be 80 pixels below that. Okay, it's 80 pixels below that. And I want it to be horizontally centered. Okay, great. So now that's positioned. Then now we want to put code in my view controller so that it does what I showed you in Android. So the way to do that is we need to drag outlets. So let me show you how to do that. Oh, so it's my main storyboard. Let me just go here and let me show the assistant. All right. Let me close this view here so I have more space. So here in my view controller class, I'm going to create outlets for the view elements. So I'm holding down the control key, and then I'm going to click control from this here over into here. Okay, so it's going to create an outlet for that label. I'll call it my label. And then connect. So it creates this variable called my label, which is an outlet connecting to the label on my storyboard here. And I'll do the same thing for the button. Actually, for the button, I don't need an outlet. What I'm going to do for the button is all I need to do is I want to be able to respond to button clicks. So instead of an outlet, I'm going to create an action for the button. Okay, so I'll show you that. So instead of an outlet, I'll create an action. And then I'll call this my button tapped. Okay. So let me put a comment here. Actions for view elements. All right. Let's make this bigger here. So this my label is a variable that's connected to the label on my screen. This my button tap is a method that's connected to my button, and this will be called whenever the button is tapped. So called whenever my button is tapped. All right, so here all I need to do then is go my label dot text equals how are you? Okay. So let's run that. If I did everything correctly, then if I tap on the button, it should change the text to of the label to "How are you?" All right, so here we go. We have "Hello World." We have a button. I'm going to tap on the button, and it changes the text to "How are you?" Okay, great. So I've shown you quickly just two things, how to do two things, how to connect your elements from the screen to your code, and then how to react to button taps, and then how to change the values of the text views or the labels in your screen. So if you look at this code here, and then you compare it to this code here, they both do the same thing. But one is for Android and one is for iOS. Okay, so actually, Peter, if you're okay, I'm going to add an image maybe the next time. What I want to do for this next little bit is, because I mentioned that I want to make this live stream kind of cater to what you guys want. So can you post on the chat, and if you're listening to this after the live stream, post in the comments what you want to get out of these live streams. So what's interesting to you. So the constraint that we're putting in is this is mobile app development. So this is either iOS or Android app development. But if there's something specific you want to learn or something you want to know about, post it on the chat or in the comments. I want to see that. Okay, so go ahead and start putting that information in. So I'll give you some thoughts. Okay, Peter has a question. Okay, I'll put Peter's question up on the screen. Okay, Peter says, "Hi, Roland. I have a question. So you say you have a lot of Java classes and XML files. Is there a good way to organize it?" Okay, good question. All right. So while I'm answering that, if you have other thoughts on what you want to get out of these live streams, we're going to have this every other week. Please put it in the chat as well. So I'm going to address Peter's comment. So you see here on the left side, we have some sort of project structure. So at the very top level, we have something called app. And then underneath that, we have a number of folders. One is called manifests. So these are system files. And then here, the main one is Java. Then underneath, there's three folders. One is the regular one, and then one is Android test. The other one is test. We can ignore those two for now. Those are for unit tests. But underneath that here, we have main activity. All right, so all of your Java files will be underneath here. Now, if you have a small project, you can just have a few files here. One for main activity. If you have a couple other screens, you would have a Java file for those screens as well. There are other things that you can create Java files for, like fragments would be one. Or if you have some data structures, so you have if you have additional classes that represent your data structures, they would be Java files in here as well. Or Kotlin if you're using Kotlin. So they would all exist here, but you can right click and you can create folders. Let me see where that is. Yeah, here. So you can create folders. So if you create a Java folder here, then you can organize them. So let's say if you had like all your data structures, if you want them in one folder, then you can put them in there. For a small project, it's usually not needed, but if you have a lot, then you can. Another folder here is the res for resource. So the layout files would be, most of your XML files would be layout files. So this one here, activity_main. This would be your layout files for your individual screens. So if you have multiple screens, you would have multiple layout files here. So there, I don't think you can create folders. Let me see. Folder. Yeah, maybe this XML resources folder. I haven't actually tried it myself. I haven't had enough screens that I needed to do that. But if you can, then you can also organize your XML files that way. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Peter. So again, what would you like to achieve out of this live stream? So uh, let me know if you have anything specific. Otherwise, I will go ahead with what I think. Peter says, thank you. You're very welcome, Peter. So I'll tell you my plan. My plan is to walk through building like a simple app on both Android and iOS. So what we'll do on each live stream is we'll build a simple app, and what I'll do is we'll build it in parallel, both in Android and in iOS, to kind of show you the difference between the two. Right now, I showed you Swift and Java. Maybe what I'm thinking is we'll do Swift and Kotlin instead. So we'll use Kotlin for Android, and then on iOS we'll use Swift, because those are the two modern languages. For Xcode, we can also use Objective-C, which is the older language that Apple used to use. But most new development nowadays are done in Swift. On the Android side, it's still kind of mixed. There's still a lot of projects that are being done in Java, and there's also some new projects that are being done in Kotlin. So on the Android side, people haven't migrated to Kotlin as fast as they have migrated to Swift on the iOS side. So starting the next live stream, what I think I'll do is let's build a simple app together. We'll build it using Swift on iOS, Kotlin on Java, on Android. And so question to you, we don't have to decide today, but post on the chat or in the comments, what type of app do you want to build? So what should we build? If you have any thoughts now, put it on the chat. And what we'll do is over the next week or so, I'll look at what you guys have suggested, and then we'll come up with a simple app that we want to build together. All right. Any thoughts right now on the live stream? What do you want to build? Okay, let me ask you a question while you're doing that. Do any of you have any prior coding experience? If you do, can you please post it on the chat and comments? I want to kind of understand, where the audience is at. So if you have any prior programming experience, please post it. If you don't have any prior programming experience, you can post it on the chat or comments as well. Okay, I'll wait a few seconds for you guys to type that in. Peter says yes. So I guess that's yes to you have prior programming experience. What is it, Peter? Can you tell us what it is? So Kevin says, I tried learning some Python by myself, but gave up. Okay. Yeah, sometimes learning by yourself is a bit difficult. So maybe with this live stream, we can kind of learn it together. Then that kind of keeps us going, right? Because we're a little bit keeping each other accountable. Late God Low says a little. Yeah, okay. Jotham City says, I have a little Java and JavaScript, and I'm okay at block coding. Okay, awesome. Peter says he has some prior Java experience. And he took a course. Okay, awesome, great. Yeah, thanks for responding. It gives me kind of an idea of where you guys are at. So yeah, that's what we'll do. Starting 2 weeks from now, we'll build a simple app. Think about what you want us to build. Okay, so you can put some suggestions. You can have more than one suggestion, and then I'll choose one maybe over the next week or so, and then we'll start building that starting next live stream. And yeah, hopefully we'll do this together, and then it'll keep you accountable, and you can follow along as well. So maybe homework for you. If you have a Mac, then you can install both Android Studio and Xcode. Unfortunately, Xcode only works on Macs. So if you have a Windows computer, then you can only follow along on Android. So if you have a Windows computer, you can install Android on your computer. If you have a Mac, then you can install both. And then you can follow along as we progress with the live stream. All right, awesome. Great. So now it's 4:36. So as I said, I want to keep this short and sweet so that it's not too big of an ask on your schedule. So it's 4:36. We'll end it. We'll end it here. The next one will be 2 weeks from now. Looking forward to join you then. Again, it'll be between 30 to 45 minutes. That's kind of where I think the sweet spot is. All right. So thanks again for joining us today, and hope to see you in a couple weeks' time. Again, homework for you. Install either Android Studio if you have a Windows computer. If you have a Mac computer, install both Android and Xcode. And I'll leave it up to you on how to install that. It should be fairly simple. Android Studio, you can just download and install it. Xcode, go to the Mac App Store, and you can download and install Xcode. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good evening, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.